When my husband died, his millionaire boss called me. Ma'am, I found something. Come to my office right now. And please don't tell your son or daughter-in-law. You could be in danger. When I arrived, I froze the moment I saw who opened the door. I'm glad you came, he said quietly. Follow my story until the end and comment from which city you're watching me. I want to see how far this story travels. I never imagined that after 45 years of marriage, I would feel like a stranger in my own life. But there I was sitting in the front pew at Elijah's funeral while my son, Marcus, and my daughter-in-law, Kira, handled every detail as if I wasn't even there. Mama, just leave this to us. You just focus on staying calm, Marcus had said earlier that morning, using that condescending tone he'd developed over the past few years. Kira stood beside him, nodding with that polite fake smile she'd perfected. I stayed quiet. I didn't have the strength to argue. Elijah had died of a heart attack 3 days earlier so suddenly that my mind still refused to accept it. One moment he was having breakfast with me talking about the garden he planned to plant in spring, and the next I found him collapsed in the garage. At the church, people kept filling the aisles. Elijah's co-workers, neighbors, distant relatives. But every single one of them went to Marcus and Kira, first offering condolences, treating them as if they were the ones widowed. I apparently was just a 68-year-old woman too fragile to understand her own grief. Grandma's very fragile, I heard Kira whisper to someone. Marcus and I are taking care of everything. Fragile. That word hurt more than any empty condolence. Elijah never saw me as fragile. To him, I was Lena, his partner, his equal. But ever since Marcus married Kira 5 years ago, everything had slowly shifted. They didn't say it outright, but I could feel it. In their eyes, I had become someone to manage, not someone to respect. During the service, something else struck me. Marcus didn't look grief-stricken at all. If anything, he looked relieved. Every time someone offered condolences, he nodded with a calmness that bordered on cold. Kira, meanwhile, had tears sliding down her cheeks, but her expression felt rehearsed, like she was performing sorrow rather than feeling it. After the burial, everyone returned to the home Elijah and I had shared for decades. Kira had arranged everything, bustling around as if she were the lady of the house. I sat quietly in my favorite chair by the window, watching her command my kitchen, my living room, my space. Lena, you should go rest, she said gently, handing me a cup of tea. I hadn't asked for it. It's been a very long day. I'm fine right here, I replied, though my voice wavered more than I wanted. Marcus joined us, sitting across from me with a look that made my stomach tighten. Mama, he began, Kira and I have been talking. We don't think you should stay in this house alone. It's too big for you, and after what happened with Dad, my blood ran cold. What are you talking about? Marcus exchanged a glance with Kira before continuing. There are some very nice retirement communities. You'd be safer there with people your age and activities. I'm not going to any nursing home, I snapped, feeling a surprising surge of strength. Kira sat beside me and took my hand, her touch overly soft, almost patronizing. It's not a nursing home, Lena. They're elegant senior living facilities. We'd visit you every weekend. This is my home, I whispered, but their pitying stares were already wearing me down. Just then, the phone rang. Marcus stood to answer it. I couldn't hear the words, but I could hear the irritation in his voice. When he came back, his expression was tight. It was someone from Dad's office, he said. They wanted to talk to you about some paperwork. What paperwork? I asked immediately. I don't know. I told them you were indisposed, that they could arrange anything with me. Something in his tone twisted uncomfortably inside me. Marcus, I said slowly, your father worked at that company for 30 years. If they need to speak with me, I have the right to hear it. Mama, don't worry about these things. We'll handle all the paperwork and legal matters. That night, after the guests left and Marcus and Kira finally walked out the door, I sat alone on the bed Elijah and I had shared for so many years. The room felt colder, emptier, heavier, like something was slipping out of my hands, and I didn't even know what it was yet. The house was too silent that night, full of memories that suddenly felt worlds away. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the dark window, when my cell phone rang. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. Mrs. Lena Odom? A man's voice asked. Yes, this is she. I'm Theodore Vance, your husband's boss at Sterling and Grant Financial. I straightened. Elijah had spoken about Mr. Vance many times, always with admiration. Mr. Vance, hello. Ma'am, I'm deeply sorry for your loss. Elijah was an extraordinary man respected by everyone here. Thank you, I whispered. There was a brief heavy pause before his voice shifted lower, more serious. Mrs. Odom, I need to see you urgently. There is something you must know about the last few months of your husband's life. Something important. My heartbeat quickened. What kind of thing? I can't discuss it over the phone. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? I hesitated. Yes, I suppose. One more thing, ma'am, he added. It is crucial that you do not tell your son or daughter-in-law about this conversation. Elijah was very specific about that. The air caught in my throat. Why? What's going on? Please, Mrs. Odom, come tomorrow at 10. Your husband asked me that if anything ever happened to him, I was to speak with you and only you. Before I could ask anything else, the line went dead. I sat in the dark for a long moment, phone trembling in my hands. Elijah had anticipated his death. He had left instructions, and for reasons I couldn't understand. Those instructions included keeping Marcus and Kira away. For the first time since losing him, it felt like Elijah was speaking to me, warning me, guiding me. This was not the time to be fragile. Something was terribly wrong, and I was the only one who could uncover it. The next morning, I woke with a determination I hadn't felt in months. For the first time since the heart attack, I had a purpose. I dressed carefully, choosing the navy blue suit Elijah always said made me look elegant and strong. Marcus called early, just as he'd been doing since the funeral. Mama, how did you sleep? Kira and I were thinking maybe you should stay with us for a few days. I'm fine, son, I said, trying to keep my voice steady and calm. In fact, I have to go out this morning, I told Marcus. There was a short pause. Go out where? My mind scrambled for a believable excuse. To the pharmacy. I ran out of my blood pressure pills. I can bring you the pills, he insisted immediately. You don't have to go out. Marcus, I can drive to the drugstore. I'm not an invalid. His sigh was loud enough for me to picture the annoyance on his face. All right, but be careful. And if you need anything, call us immediately. I hung up, my hands already trembling. On the drive downtown, I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The Sterling and Grant Financial Building rose ahead of me, a 20-story glass tower that had always intimidated me. Elijah had spent years working on the 15th floor in internal audit, but I had never stepped foot on the executive level. The receptionist directed me upstairs. When the elevator doors opened, I found myself in a world of polished marble floors, silent hallways, and doors with names etched in gold. Theo's office was breathtaking, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Dark mahogany furniture, the faint scent of expensive cologne lingering in the air. He stood when I entered. Mrs. Odom, thank you for coming. Please sit. I eased into one of the leather chairs, feeling like I had stepped into a place where truths were heavy and inescapable. First of all, Theo began, folding his hands. I want you to know your husband was one of our most valuable employees. In 30 years, he never received a single complaint. Thank you, I murmured, sensing there was much more. Theo moved to a file cabinet and returned with a thick folder. He set it gently in front of me. During the last 6 months of his life, Elijah came to me several times with very specific concerns. He opened the folder. Inside were dozens of documents, handwritten notes in Elijah's familiar script, and what looked like photographs of financial papers. Concerns about what? I asked, my pulse quickening. Theo met my gaze directly. About his family. For a moment I felt the room tilt beneath me. My family? Elijah believed that his son and daughter-in-law were trying to manipulate him into making significant changes to his will and to his bank accounts. The words didn't register at first, they just floated in the air, impossible to absorb. That's impossible, I stammered. Marcus would never. Mrs. Odom, he interrupted gently, did you know that over the last 8 months, Elijah received multiple visits from your son and daughter-in-law, often when you were not home? I stared at him, numb. They repeatedly suggested that it would be better for you if Elijah organized things so that, in case of his death, Marcus would have immediate legal authority over all financial and medical decisions related to you. I shook my head, but a cold heaviness spread through my chest. That can't be true, I whispered. Theo slid a page toward me. It was a photocopy of a legal document partially filled out. At the bottom was Elijah's signature crossed out in a firm, deliberate line. Elijah brought this to me 3 months ago, Theo said quietly. He told me Marcus pressured him to sign it, said it was best for the family. that it would spare you from having to make difficult decisions if something happened to him. My eyes moved to the top of the document, and what I read made my skin crawl. It was a transfer of power of attorney, a document that would have given Marcus complete control over all our finances and every medical decision related to me if Elijah died or became incapacitated. But he didn't sign it, I breathed. No, Theo confirmed. And that's when Elijah began to worry. He told me Marcus became very upset when he refused, accused him of being selfish, said he wasn't thinking about what would be best for you. My chest tightened. My mind began connecting dots I wish had stayed separate. I remembered Marcus and Kira's visits over the past year, the hushed conversations that stopped the moment I entered a room, the shared looks I couldn't decipher. There's more, Theo said quietly, turning another page. Elijah also told me that Kira had begun suggesting you were showing signs of confusion. Memory loss. What? My voice cracked. She told Elijah and later Marcus that you were repeating stories, forgetting conversations, that maybe you needed closer medical supervision. It felt like someone had struck me in the stomach. I'm not, I whispered, trembling. My memory is perfectly fine. Elijah knew that. That's why he started documenting everything. Theo continued. Every conversation, every suggestion, every moment he felt pressured. He flipped through more pages, each one filled with Elijah's neat handwriting, dates, times, word-for-word notes, a meticulous record of what now looked like a deliberate, calculated campaign to undermine me and gain control over everything Elijah and I had built. Why didn't he tell me? I choked out, tears burning my eyes. Why didn't he say anything? He didn't want to worry you, Theo said gently. He hoped he was wrong. He hoped it was all a misunderstanding. Before I could respond, there was a sudden sharp knock at the door. Theo and I both turned. My heart stopped. Marcus and Kira stood in the doorway, their expressions a strange mix of shock and something darker. Mama, Marcus said, his voice edged with something I had never heard from him before. What are you doing here? Kira stepped in behind him, wearing that familiar, sweet false smile that now made my skin crawl. Lena, she said softly, we were so worried when we couldn't find you at home. Why didn't you tell us you were coming here? Theo rose slowly from his chair. I could see the tension in his jaw and his shoulders. Something dangerous had just walked into that room. Mama, Marcus said, his voice edged with something I had never heard from him before. What are you doing here? Kira stepped in behind him, wearing that familiar, sweet false smile that now made my skin crawl. Lena, she said softly, we were so worried when we couldn't find you at home. Why didn't you tell us you were coming here? Theo rose slowly from his chair. I could see the tension in his jaw and his shoulders. Something dangerous had just walked into that room. Mama, Marcus said, his voice edged with something I had never heard from him before. What are you doing here? Kira stepped in behind him, wearing that familiar sweet false smile that now made my skin crawl. Lena, she said softly, we were so worried when we couldn't find you at home. Why didn't you tell us you were coming here? Theo rose slowly from his chair. I could see the tension in his jaw and his shoulders. Something dangerous had just walked into that room. Mr. Odom, Mrs. Odom, Theo said firmly, this is a private conversation between your mother and me. I would appreciate it if you respected that. Kira let out a strained laugh. With all due respect, Mr. Vance, Lena has been very fragile since Elijah's death. We don't think it's appropriate for her to make important decisions without family supervision. Family supervision? I repeated, heat rising in my chest. I'm 68 years old. I'm not a child. Marcus exchanged a look with Kira, one of those silent, loaded glances I had seen too many times lately, the same one they shared at the funeral. A look that now felt ominous. Of course you're not a child, Mama, Marcus said, but his tone was the same one he used when correcting his toddler nephew. We just want to protect you from people who might take advantage of your grief. I looked at Theo. He had gone quiet, studying us with a grave, deliberate seriousness. Then my gaze drifted to the closed folder on his desk, the folder containing everything Elijah had been fighting alone. Theo, I said, using his first name intentionally. Could you give me a few minutes with my son and daughter-in-law? He nodded. Of course. I'll be right outside. The moment the door clicked shut, the air shifted sharply. Marcus visibly relaxed, leaning back as if a burden had been lifted, as if he had just regained control. Mama, he began, I don't know what that man has been telling you, but you have to understand people get very manipulative when money is involved. Money? I repeated, my stomach tightening. Kira slid into the chair beside me, placing her hand on my arm with exaggerated concern. Lena, sweetheart, we know Elijah had a considerable life insurance policy. And with the house, the savings there are. People who take advantage of widows in vulnerable moments. A cold shock spread through me. How do you two even know about Elijah's life insurance? Another silent glance passed between them, sharp, tense, unmistakably guilty. Well, Marcus said, clearing his throat, Dad mentioned it a few months ago, when we were talking about making sure you'd be taken care of if something happened to him. Funny, I said slowly, because Elijah never mentioned those conversations to me. Silence fell over the room, thick and suffocating. And then, I heard it, a sound that froze my blood. A cough I would recognize anywhere. All three of us turned toward the small private bathroom attached to Theo's office. The door creaked open, and a figure stepped out, one I had buried just 4 days ago. Elijah, my husband, alive, breathing, standing. He looked at me with a mixture of pain, love, and apology shining in his eyes. Hello, Lena, he said softly. I think I screamed. I'm not entirely sure. What I do remember is that the world began spinning violently, and if Elijah hadn't rushed forward to catch me, I would have slid right out of the chair. What, how? I stammered, reaching up to touch his face with trembling hands, needing to feel skin warmth, life. Behind us, I heard Kira gasp, and Marcus mutter a curse under his breath. Elijah held me gently, his hands steady and familiar, the same hands that had comforted me for 45 years. I'm sorry, my love, he whispered. I'm so sorry to have put you through this. But it was the only way. The only way to what? I asked, though a sickening part of me already knew. Elijah lifted his gaze toward Marcus and Kira, his expression hardened, colder than I had ever seen it. The only way to protect you from them. Marcus stumbled backward a step. This is impossible. You're dead. We saw you. There was a funeral. A death certificate. There was a death certificate. Elijah said, straightening but keeping one arm firmly around me. Falsified with the help of a very discreet doctor and a funeral director who owed a favor. Theo helped me arrange it. But why? I managed to whisper. Elijah cupped my cheek gently before turning back to face them. Because I found out what you two were planning. Kira's face drained of color. I don't know what you're talking about. No. Elijah walked to the desk and opened the folder Theo had closed. He pulled out several papers and spread them across the polished wood. Even from where I sat, I could see emails, text message screenshots, and typed transcripts. He read one aloud, his voice steady but full of anger. Mama is starting to show signs of dementia. I think you should consider the possibility of her needing full-time care soon. If Dad signs the documents, I prepared, we can make sure she has the best possible care when the time comes. My son's face turned chalk white. Elijah continued, flipping to another page. Kira agreed, and the sooner the better. The house alone is worth almost $500,000, not including retirement savings. I felt the air leave my lungs. They had been planning to declare me incompetent. They had been calculating the value of my home, of my life. This is taken out of context. Marcus cried. We were worried about Mama, we just wanted to make sure. Make sure of what? Elijah snapped. That you could control her life? Declare her incompetent? Put her in an institution while you sold the house and drained our savings? Kira shot to her feet. This is insane, Elijah. Faking your death is a crime. You forged documents, death certificates. This is fraud. You're right, Elijah said calmly, and I'm prepared to face the consequences. But first, Lena deserved to know the truth about what you've both been planning. He came back to me, taking my hands in his. My love, for the last 8 months they have been visiting me whenever you weren't home. At first I believed they were concerned, but slowly I realized every conversation was crafted to convince me you were losing mental capacity, that you were confused, forgetful, that I needed to take legal steps to protect you. I looked at Marcus, my son, my baby, the boy I carried for 9 months and held through every fever and nightmare. Is that true? I whispered. For a moment, just a moment, I saw guilt flicker across his features, but then it vanished, replaced by something hard and cold. Mama, you don't understand the financial pressure we're under. Kira and I, we have debts, obligations. So it was true, I murmured. Elijah squeezed my hands, grounding me. When I realized what was happening, I hired a private investigator. He said, we found that Marcus has gambling debts totaling over $150,000. And Kira has been using credit cards opened in your name without your knowledge. The room spun violently. Credit cards in my name? I whispered. 3 separate accounts. Elijah confirmed softly, with over $10,000 in charges. Kira finally snapped. That's enough, Elijah. I don't know what kind of sick game you're playing, but this ends right now. She turned to me, her voice dripping with false concern. Lena, let's go. Clearly your husband has lost his mind. But I didn't move. For the first time in months, maybe years, everything aligned. The constant unexpected visits. The overly dramatic concern about my well-being. The comments about my memory. The pressure to make quick decisions after the funeral. They hadn't been caring for me. They'd been conditioning me, preparing me. I'm not going anywhere, I said at last. My voice sounded stronger than I remembered it ever being. But I think you two should leave. Marcus's face twisted, an expression I had never seen on my child. He was no longer the son who hugged me after bad dreams or called me on my birthdays. He was a stranger who had just watched something valuable slip from his grasp. Elijah helped me onto the office sofa while Theo returned with a bottle of water and a heavy, troubled expression. Marcus and Kira hovered near the doorway, tense and cornered like animals unsure whether to run or attack. Lena, Elijah said softly, kneeling in front of me, his hands warm around mine. There's more you need to know. My mind was already struggling beneath the weight of everything: the fact that my husband was alive, that he had staged his own death, that my own son had plotted to dismantle my life. But something in Elijah's eyes told me the worst truth was still waiting. More, I whispered. Theo opened another section of the folder. This time, he withdrew a stack of photographs. Without a word, he placed them on the coffee table between us. These photos were